people don't even know.
His new Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau.
Sunny ways, my friends.
You know, humans sometimes just have a fascination with new ideas. Things that have never been tried before, or maybe they have been tried, but they just imagine that if we do things differently, that somehow we're going to get a better result. The same thing happens with government. They get fascinated with these new ideas and embrace them without really a strong sense that there's evidence to back up the idea.
Because it's 2015.
Well, it's been done countless of times. Sometimes it works out, but a lot of times it doesn't. But why do they embrace it? Because it's new. I want to show you something. This is the Parliament building blueprints right here. Anyone who's familiar with construction knows that these are pretty basic plans for a building of this size and scope. And in the 1960s, they didn't have much more than just this to depend on when trying to figure out how to rebuild and maintain these buildings. When Centre Block was rebuilt after the fire, they built it with stone, not only on the outside, but also on the inside. It has an incredible story to tell. But of course, like every other building in the country, these buildings started to show their age. In the 1960s, they recognized that it was time to do some fixing on the building.
The Peace Tower and the Parliament buildings, where representatives from every part of Canada make the laws we live by.
And the workers started to fill the cracks between the rocks because the mortar had started to deteriorate. But what they used was this new product that it sealed off whole walls. The idea at that point was if they could seal off all of the exterior walls of the Parliament buildings, that they would have a waterproof building that would never deteriorate again. Unfortunately, they didn't recognize the foundations that they were working on. You see, the buildings had been designed to have the ability for water to be able to permeate, but then to get out of the walls. Unfortunately, this new product sealed the walls off in certain parts, while water continued to drip into the baths. And of course, in this climate, began to freeze and thaw and freeze and thaw. And that process essentially destroyed the building. Rocks started to fall out, and it got to the point in the 90s and the 2000s where whole parts of the building began to be unsafe. And that's all because somebody in the 1960s decided to use a product that was new. It had never been tested, it had never been tried, at least not in this application, and it almost destroyed the building. I'm always fascinated by buildings, but it got me thinking. There's a lot of times in our life that we use new things thinking it'll be good, it'll be better, and inevitably the promises that were made never materialized. Justin Trudeau's government came into power promising all kinds of new things, not because it was good, but because it was new. Just because it was new didn't mean it was going to work. As Justin Trudeau started to apply his new and innovative technologies to the mortar of our country, Canadians started to feel like they couldn't breathe. They started to be told that their views were unimportant, and certainly transparency and accountability went out the window. I think back to the early days of this government. I recall a protester, First Nations protester, showed up a fundraiser for the Prime Minister, bought a ticket to be there, and started to ask the Prime Minister important questions about clean drinking water.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you very much for your donation tonight. I really appreciate the donation to the Liberal Party of Canada.
She was told to shut up. Of course, we've seen other examples of that. Jody Wilson-Raybould started to speak out against this government, saying that what she was being asked to do was illegal and certainly immoral. And what did the Prime Minister do? He fired her for doing it. It's gotten so bad that he'll demonize anybody who disagrees with him. If you have an idea that the Prime Minister disagrees with, he tries to silence you. If you have an idea that he thinks is unacceptable, he calls you names.
À la vaccination. Ils sont extrémistes. Qui croient pas dans la science, qui sont souvent misogynes, souvent racistes.
Unfortunately, what's happened is the Prime Minister has created the divisions and the cracks in our society that his policies were supposed to avoid. And like the walls of Parliament, when people don't have the opportunity to breathe, they start to push out. And unfortunately, it's starting to create cracks within the fabric of our nation. This country is built on freedom and liberty. People have come from around the world to escape tyranny to a place where freedom of speech and religion is guaranteed. And we have a long history of being able to express ourselves in this country, being able to exercise the right to protest. Unfortunately, this Prime Minister has rejected those important tenets that we have been guaranteed in this country. But there is one big difference between those workers in the 1960s that applied new and innovative mortar to this building and Justin Trudeau. The guys in the 1960s didn't have plans. They didn't have anybody to talk to that had been there when the original buildings were built. They didn't know any better, but Justin Trudeau does. We have the Bill of Rights. We have the Charter. Canadians have been guaranteed freedom, the ability to express themselves. Unfortunately, Justin Trudeau is trying to apply policies that actually fundamentally start to attack those freedoms. We've seen what happens when we alienate whole sections of our country or people within our communities. We saw it in the 1980s when his dad did a real number on Western Canada. We can rebuild the buildings. It's just a matter of time and money. Our country is a little bit more difficult to repair. Once the damage and the wounds have been created, it takes a lot more work to rebuild. I believe our country is worth saving. As long as we look back to the blueprints that were laid by those who came before us, it's pretty clear that they knew what they were doing. We just have to trust them. What we need is leaders that will build on this history of freedom and opportunity. Part of that is holding Justin Trudeau to account right now, but it's reminding Canadians that they can never forget that this country was built on freedom that will create opportunity, and they have to elect leaders that will build on the foundations that were laid by those who came before us. And I look forward to doing just that. I love doing videos like this and having an opportunity to talk to you. Please share this video with all your friends that might be interested in it. As always, thanks for watching.